Hello and welcome to a Thursday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and if it's Thursday, we are talking about Florida State's opponent. And join us to talk a little bit about the Cal Bears is Matt Moreno from GoldenBearReport.com. First of all, Matt, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for taking the time out over on the West Coast. What time is it over there? I always get confused. Arizona's doesn't honor daylight savings time, so sometimes it's 4. California's 3 or 4. What time is it out there?
It's just after lunch right now. It's funny. I used to cover Arizona for a while, so I had to get used to the never, no daylight savings out there. It's all, stays the same throughout the year. So it was always confusing. But California, 3 hours behind, just after lunch right now.
Yeah, I saw where you had an Arizona email address. Did you go to Arizona?
I did not go to Arizona.
Okay.
So I'm originally from California, but covered Arizona for a long time.
Okay. All right. Well, number one, thanks for joining us. And we always look forward to these previews to give Osceola subscribers an inside look at Florida State's opponent. And right now it's kind of two programs going in different directions. It's kind of like being in the bizarro world of college football. Cal is 3-0, coming off a win 2 weeks ago against Auburn, and then obviously and just outside the top 25 in the rankings. And FSU's 0-3 and coming off a 13-1 season, so things don't make a whole lot of sense. But I did listen to head coach Justin Wilcox's press conference on Tuesday, Matt, talking about the Bears' start to the 2024 season. Seems to be a lot of excitement around the program right now. Can you kind of just give us a lay of the land as to what that excitement level is?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of see it all play out. There's kind of always a hesitation with Cal fans to get excited in any certain moments. There's been moments under Justin Wilcox where they've had opportunities coming off of big wins, like the game against Auburn, to really do some things and really make some noise, and they failed the following week. And so there's a lot of eyes on that San Diego State game for Cal fans because they know how it typically has gone, and they were able to get through that test. And now they're heading out to Florida State, but there's a good amount of buzz about the Bears right now. And Justin Wilcox coming into the season, even going back to the spring, he was really excited about this team. He doesn't generally talk in kind of overall terms. He likes to focus on next game, next practice type of thing. But he was really excited about this team, talking about the team speed, talking about some of the elements that they added through the portal, kind of in an overarching way that he doesn't typically do. And so it was really interesting to hear that. So you kind of get the sense like, oh, I think he really likes his team. And so I think he does. I think the staff really likes what they've built. They have a really nice blend of kind of homegrown within the program talent that they've added to with some portal talent. And so they've been really good about their success rate within the portal. And I think that's really helped kind of bring this along. And yeah, there's just a lot of positivity around this program. I still think there's some hesitation to be like, okay, are they for real from within the fan base? And I think that's why this game is so important. Next few weeks are important as they, play Miami as well after the bye week. And so I think there's still some hesitation of like, is this for real? But there's a definite buzz around Berkeley. There's a definite buzz around the program. I think that's a positive thing for this team.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, just watching the Auburn game, which I watched almost every snap of, it's a tough football team. And we'll talk about a couple of your portal additions a little bit later, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, where you guys picked up one of the best linebackers in all of college football. That kid is an amazing football player. I'm looking forward to, and we're talking about Teddy Buchanan, and I'll have Matt talk a little bit more when we get to the defense, but an amazing football player. But let's start with the offensive side of the ball, which is where we always do on most of these shows, Matt. And obviously, Cal tries to be a balanced spread offense. I think it's 114 runs to 93 throws. Kind of what is Cal's personality on offense through 3 games this year?
Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out. Coming into the season, they have a new offensive coordinator, Mike Blesh, who took over. He was the former offensive line coach. Jake Spavital left to go to Baylor after one season. So Mike Blesh is into his second season with the program, but is taking over the offense overall. So I think he's still trying to kind of get his feet wet. He was the offensive coordinator at North Texas before he arrived at Cal. And so I think he's still trying to kind of figure things out, get his feet wet a little bit. They've been missing a big piece, though. Not having Jay Knott for most of the last 3 games has been a big deal. And so, it's impacted the running game coming into the season. The talk was, well, they're going to be a running team. That's what they're going to do. You have Jay Knott, you're going to utilize him. And so they've kind of been hit with a curveball with his injury. And so I think that there's been some kind of feeling out of what they want to be. And obviously the quarterback position wasn't settled until really last week. And so there's been some different elements that they've tried to get over and things they tried to work on. But I think they have some explosive elements to their offense. the running game is really the thing that they want to build. And so they did that last week. I think that was one of the positive signs that come out of the San Diego State game. Javian Thomas, Kadarius Kellaway really stepped up. They haven't really been as productive as they had been, in the previous 2 games. And I think everyone was trying to figure out, okay, how do we play without Jaden Ott? He's such an important part of what they want to do. And so it felt like they settled in a little bit more, and then potentially you get Jaden Ott back this week. And so they want to build things off the running game. That's what they want to do first, to kind of open up the passing game. They're missing some of their top weapons at receiver. Yep. So there's been some elements where they've had to kind of find some guys, do some things to kind of build out the receiving game, but the passing game. But I think they've kind of settled into a nice rhythm. And Fernando Mendoza has really, I think, taken another step over the last week or so in terms of his confidence, in terms of his ability to kind of guide the offense.
Yeah, and listen, for those of you that are not familiar with Cal football, Jaden Ott led the Pac-12 last year in rushing, a dynamic guy with the ball in his hands. And then, of course, last week you mentioned they over 200 yards rushing for Cal. Florida State fans are going to be disappointed to see that. It seems like everybody finds their running game a week before they come to Tallahassee. But Javian Thomas had a heck of a game for Cal last week. Jaden Ott is 6 foot 210. Just explain the type of runner that Jaden and Javian are. I know that Javian, a lot of his yards come after contact. For Ott, seems to be a little bit more elusive, not as physical. But just give us a little bit about their running styles as backs.
Yeah, Jaden Ott is definitely a speed guy. I mean, when he gets in the open field, he's gone, and so that's a big part of his game. And they haven't really been explaining what the injury is, but it's felt like a high ankle sprain of some sort that's kind of kept him out. So you have to be concerned about that element because, he is a speed guy. And so he warmed up before the game against San Diego State, looked okay. But you have to, wonder about that, especially if he ends up playing at all, in this game and playing more than he did in that first week with that speed element. But he's definitely the fast guy. He's able to get out to the edge and get on the outside and do his damage there. That's where both of his touchdowns came in the opener. They were on the outside. They've tended to run a little bit more inside with the other guys, and so that's where Javian Thomas has really, been impactful. Kadarius Kellaway as well has some good size. Yep. Byron Cardwell, who's a transfer from Oregon, who missed last year with a pretty serious knee injury. He's their other option. He can do some damage kind of up the middle, and so I think they'd like to live, going up inside, running inside, and being a team that kind of has those inside runs. But Jaden Ott is just so quick and so fast that he kind of changes the game plan a little bit. So I think that's the difference you'll see if he's out there. I think you'll see a lot more, runs to the outside and trying to reach the perimeter. But Javian Thomas has been a really important piece to what they want to do. He had a scary injury last year against Oregon, missed some time towards the end of the season. I think it's taken some time for him to kind of shake that mentally. But it feels like he's reached that point, and he has some speed himself, not afraid to, play to the contact. But I think where he really makes a difference is in the passing game. His ability to catch passes out of the backfield has really been a big factor for him in moving up the depth chart and really creating a job for himself and being that number one, because it wasn't clear, going throughout camp, all those guys, Kadarius Kellaway, Javian Thomas, Byron Cardwell, each had their day where they looked like they were going to be the number two or, be, that next guy up after Jaden Ott. And so it was really hard to determine which one it was going to be. Javian Thomas was probably the most consistent throughout training camp. And so he ends up kind of being that guy that they've turned to, but he's only getting better. And so that's the thing with him is he hasn't up until this season, he hasn't really done a whole lot in terms of running the football. And so they used him a lot in the passing game last year as a freshman. And so we're really kind of getting our first taste of what he is as a runner at the college level. And I think he brings a lot to the table. Yeah,
so it sounds like you guys are deep at running back. And listen, I want to go back to Ott for a second because Justin Wilcox was very upfront about injuries. It was the first question that was asked. And he went, a lot of college coaches are not like that. They're not going to tell you anything about injuries. They're just, for whatever reason, they just don't do it. But he mentioned that Ott was probable for this game. In your experience covering Justin's teams, what does he mean when he says probable? Is that 50-50, 75-25? I mean, do you have a good feel for what he means when he says probable?
It typically means 50-50, but there is some differentiation in that. It could be, I mean, it also depends on tone, and the tone this week felt like more kind of maybe 75%.
Okay,
than 50%. I mean, he was probable last week as well. They ended up going with game time decision, on game day, and he wasn't able to go. Like I said, he warmed up, he suited up, was out there with the team to begin things, and then took his pads off afterward. But so it does feel probably similar to last week in terms of a game time decision. I think they'll let him go through warm-up, see if he's able to go. If he gets cleared, he'll be out on the field. But it does feel just with tone like they're expecting him to play. That's kind of the feel that I got. That's kind of the feeling with a lot of guys, and they've had a number of injuries on the offensive side, offensive line in particular, where it feels like maybe those guys are a little bit closer to playing, and that would put them more at full strength because they have been playing a little bit handcuffed so far through the first 3 games offensively because missing some key weapons, like I mentioned at receiver, missing 2 starting offensive linemen, missing Jaden Knott. It hasn't been great, for the offense in terms of health, and so it feels like they're going to get closer to that this week.
All right, and going back to quarterbacks, you mentioned that they had not settled that totally going into week 3. Obviously, a little bit surprised to see that. I hear that because of Mendoza leading the team to a win over Auburn, but he was also injured in that game. Looked like it could have been I don't know what it ended up being, but on the television copy, looked like it could have been a hyperextended knee, twisted ankle. Anyway, he got up, took the last snap of that ball game. And then, of course, you guys brought in Chandler Rogers, who was the starting quarterback at North Texas last year, a little bit more of a mobile guy. He helped in that Auburn game. I think he's played in at least 2 of the 3 games. I think he's played in the last 2. My evaluation of Mendoza is that he has command of the huddle. The team believes in him. I mean, this is obviously just watching television copies of your games. Maybe not the most physically gifted quarterback, but a guy that understands what his role is in that offense. So tell us a little bit about both the quarterbacks, because I'm sure the Florida State will probably see both of them.
Yeah, and so they finally took the oar off of Fernando Mendoza this week on the depth chart, so he is going to be the starter. The coaches kind of mentioned that last week, that he was going to be the starter. It was really the first time that they come out and said, like, oh, he's going to be our starter. But there was a real tough competition throughout training camp, and you could pick a day and it was one guy over the other was having a better day, and so it really made it difficult on the staff to come through and pick one guy. They never really did. They just kind of threw both guys out there and let them kind of go to work. And in the opener against UC Davis, it became clear that Fernando Mendoza was going to be their starter. Chandler Rogers had some issues. He couldn't really get the offense going. Had a better performance against Auburn in that that short time that he was able to be on the field. He's a better passer than he's shown. I think people think he maybe gets locked into being a mobile kind of running quarterback, but that's not his game. He can pass. He's probably a better deep passer than Fernando Mendoza, to be honest, but just hasn't had those opportunities yet in the game at Cal. And so there's not actually a lot of difference in between what they have to do with either guy running the system. And so I think that's the benefit. Fernando Mendoza has improved as a runner, and you saw that last week. He was able to get that rushing touchdown and do some things with his feet, was able to do that, against Auburn on that run that he injured himself. It was a nice run before he got hurt. And so there haven't been any lingering effects of that injury, of whatever that was. He called it more of a scare. He had a similar issue last year in the bowl game, kind of had a similar deal where it looked like a hyperextension of the knee, had to come out, and it looked concerning. And then he went back into the game. And so it's kind of just become his deal, I think, where he just has to scare the coaches or has to scare the fans about, what's going on with his knee. But he played all right last week, looked okay, and has continued to roll on from that. But there isn't a lot of difference in what they can do, with the offense with either quarterback. And I think that's the benefit of having, the system they do, and what Mike Blesh likes about never kind of ruling out Chandler Rogers, because he does have some elements to his game that are explosive. Again, the deep ball, I think, is his real advantage. Obviously, probably having a better ability to run the ball is working in his favor as well. I don't anticipate them playing both going into this game unless they truly have to. They've kind of gone away from that. I think they left open that possibility against Auburn. I think I don't think they did. They wanted to play him more against Auburn. Just didn't work out that way. They wanted to play him, I think, in the first half of that game. And then Fernando Mendoza went 19 for 21. And it was like, oh, we can't pull him now. And so we'll see if that happens, if they come back around to that plan. It feels like that's going to be less so the case. It feels like you mentioned Fernando Mendoza. He does have the locker room. I mean, I think if any player on the team had to pick his favorite player, the guy they rally around the most, it's Fernando Mendoza. He has a very popular personality. He has a big personality. He's someone that enjoys talking. He likes being the leader of this team. And so he definitely has the locker room on his side. And so I think that's a big part of kind of what has led to his success as well. I think players, within his team want to play for him. They want to do well for him. And so he does a good job of spreading the ball around. They've gotten a lot more receivers involved, especially last week against San Diego State. They got a lot more guys involved. And I think they were stunned a little bit when they had a couple injuries come up to Tobias Merriweather, who transferred in from Notre Dame, Keon Graves, who transferred in from Ohio State. Throughout camp, for most of the camp, those guys were their guys on the outside. It looked like a completely different offense because they could stretch the field some more. So I think they were stunned a little bit and trying to figure out, okay, how are all these pieces going to fit? because there are some guys stepping into some roles that maybe they didn't have for most of training camp, most of the offseason. And so I think there was a little bit of that. I think you started to see everyone settling in a little bit more last week against San Diego State. I think that's the positivity you're building around if you're their offense right now.
Yeah, and listen, as you mentioned, a lot of weapons deep at receiver too. 11 players have caught at least one pass. Most of those guys have caught 2 or more. You mentioned Tomias Merriweather and the Keon kid, both highly anticipated transfers. But Neziah Hunter, 12 catches, Maven Anderson, 9, Mikey Matthews, Mikey Matthews, another transfer, I believe, from Utah, 7. How good and how deep are they? Against, obviously you mentioned they used a lot of guys last week against San Diego State, but, then you've got a great tight end, Corey Dyches. Is that how you,
Yep.
Dyches, how you, just how good are they in the passing game, and how has that affected what Cal has decided to do on offense?
Yeah, the emergence of Isaiah Hunter has been, I don't want to say a surprise because he was starting to show that, over the final couple weeks of camp. And you're like, okay, he could be a player because he was a really talented high school player, didn't really, get an opportunity at all last year. And so you weren't really sure what to expect. His spring wasn't amazing. It wasn't like he had, was on a tear throughout spring. It really wasn't until about maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks into camp that he really started to shine. You said, oh, he could potentially be something. But at that point, again, you had some other guys in the rotation and in the lineup that you're like, oh, he's probably not going to get on the field because they just have other options that are just so much more talented. But he's closed that gap. And, over the final 2 weeks of camp, and then when those other guys went down with injuries, he really became a clear top option at receiver. And that's carried over into the season. He's really shined. I think he has a really nice chemistry with Fernando Mendoza in particular. That's really stood out. Jonathan Brady is an outside player that they really haven't utilized as much, but he's been able to get in on the mix. Mason Starling has been injured for a lot of his Cal career, but when he's been on the field, he's been really productive, and he's had some moments throughout the season so far. Tron Grizel was their leading returning receiver, hasn't really got going as well. So they have some other weapons that they can use, but Isaiah Hunter's emergence, and then last week, the emergence of Corey Dyches. I mean, that was an interesting addition for them through the portal because they have a returning starting tight end, Jack Andrews, who caught a lot of passes. One of Fernando Mendoza's best friends on the team. They have a really strong connection, really has become his security blanket, in the offense, where if he can't find a place to go with the ball, it'll tend to go to Jack Andrews. And so you weren't sure exactly why they wanted to or needed to add someone like Corey Dyches, but Justin Wilcox has talked about it. Even if they feel like they're full at a position, they're going to add talent if they can do it. And so he did a lot, at his previous spot and at Maryland, and was able to, have success there, and not quite tight end size. He doesn't look like a tight end when you see him out there, but isn't quite a receiver as well. And so he fits kind of an interesting mold for Cal, and they like the mismatch that he brings. And he really, that game against San Diego State was really the first time we got to see, okay, this is the guy they brought in and why they wanted to bring him in, because he really seemed to have some nice chemistry with Fernando Mendoza, and really is a nice piece for them to add to this offense to go along with the other weapons they have.
All right, and just briefly, before we switch to defense, you mentioned some offensive line injuries. You said they're getting back to. You think they're back almost full tilt for this game?
We'll see. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds more promising than it has been. And so, Sioape Vadakani is their starting right guard. Has played a lot of games for them. Got hurt, I think, the second day of camp. Has not played since then, and so it's been mixing and matching. They're not deep at offensive line, and that was the concern, was if you had any injuries, really, that it was going to be a problem. And so they've had to work through some issues. They've had some snapping issues because they've had some different centers that have had to work, with that first unit. Will McDonald, who came in from Coastal Carolina as a transfer, we weren't really sure what to expect from him. He was a little bit smaller than the rest of the offensive line, but emerged throughout training camp, became their starting center by the end of training camp, and then went down. And so they've had to mix and match, and so it's weakened kind of the depth that they had, what little depth that they had. It's kind of weakened that. They've had to mix and match some guys, and it hasn't been great. I mean, they need to play better up front. And so it sounds like those guys are part of the probable group now. They were part of the doubtful group last week. And so that's positive. Neither one of them has played in a while. So that's going to be the issue, is if there's some rust there, if those guys both do go, that could be potentially, an area that Florida State can exploit. And so if they're at full health and ready to go, I think it gives Cal a really good chance to do some more damage on the ground. Obviously, keep Fernando Mendoza, whoever's playing quarterback, clean. But they need those guys back, because that's been a real issue. Is the pocket has not been clean. They've had some issues running the ball, showed up less so last week, but have had some issues running the ball. And again, the snapping issues have been they've been safe. They haven't turned into fumbles or turnovers, but it's been a little bit dangerous, I think, at times for them with the snapping issues.
Okay. All right, moving over to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, the strength of this team through 3 games creates a lot of turnovers. 5 against Auburn, if I'm not mistaken. Leads of all the teams Florida State has played. If you they've got 60 total quarterback pressures. If you go to the PFF stats, if you're a Florida State fan listening to this, through 3 games, that's more than any team Florida State has played this year. So they are disruptive. Let's talk a little bit about that defense. They seem deep at defensive tackle and outside linebacker. They're very good at starting linebacker, but thin at starting linebacker. But he's got to be one of the best football players in all of college football through 3 games, and that's Teddy Buchanan, the transfer from a FCS school, if it was at UC Davis. But just give us your overall thoughts on the defense, Matt, and then just kind of some headliners that we need to pay attention to, and tell us a little bit about the style of defense that they play under Pete Sermon and Justin Wilcox, who has a defensive background.
Yeah, so they've kind of changed some things a little bit this year. They become more aggressive, and I think that's what fans are really excited about, because there's been this call of like, can you please bring some more pressure, do some more things, be more creative to make this defense even better. And so they were really good about taking the ball away last year, but it just didn't work out. They were getting carved up, defensively elsewhere, and it was just not leading to victories. And so they kind of got things figured out at the end of last season, and they've really been able to carry that over. And they're bringing some more pressure. They're bringing some more blitzes at times, and being a little bit more creative enough to shake things up and continue to allow them to have so many turnovers, especially in the back end and the secondary, where Noll Williams, who came over from UNLV, Marcus Harris, who's come over from Idaho, have been really good at the cornerback spots in terms of takeaways, interceptions. They lead the country. They lead the FBS in interceptions. And so there was a moment early on when you were like, can they survive if their whole defense is just going to be, hey, we're going to take the ball away a bunch of times every game? And fortunately, they've found a way to really slow teams down. And so it feels like they've kind of reached that point where Peter Sermon, their defensive coordinator, is kind of able to do some more things with the talent he has on the field. I think the talent at linebacker has really helped allow that. And Teddy Buchanan, you saw the numbers he put up at UC Davis, and you were like, there's something there. But you just never know. You never know what that's going to look like when, a player's making that jump up. And he wasn't able to participate in the spring, but UC Davis is not far from Berkeley. So he was actually at every spring practice. He was able to watch. They have open practices during the spring. And so he was able to watch every single practice. And so I think that gave him a leg up on being, on the field and implementing, the game plan and learning the playbook to go alongside Cade Uluave, who was a really standout freshman for Cal last season. Started out last training camp as a running back. He was, they had an excess of linebackers. They had Jackson Sermon, who was Peter Sermon's son, as a returning middle linebacker. They just didn't have a lot of room. And so Cade Uluave started out camp as a running back. He was working with the running backs, and then they just called him into action when Jackson Sermon went down with the season-ending injury. It was like, all right, we have this other guy who's played linebacker before and came here as a linebacker, but has been playing running back, and he ends up becoming Pac-12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. And so he's kind of taken over that starting middle linebacker role. But Teddy Buchanan looks the part. He has great size, a really interesting demeanor. He's not someone who talks a lot. They bring him into interviews because he's been doing so well, and he'll say what needs to be said, but he's not going to really wow you with kind of, what he brings in terms of excitement level or personality, but he's just a worker. They've talked a lot about, what he does off the field and just his preparation. And you can tell that he wants to play at the next level. And I think he's an older guy. And so I think he's bringing everything he's learned and everything he wants to do after Cal to the table, and really has been a vital piece of this defense. Absolutely. And then the defensive line, they've added some quality pieces. They've gotten healthy up front. They haven't had full health for a long time. Seems like a few years now. And so they've gotten a lot more healthy up front along the defensive line, and they're having a pretty steady rotation. There's not a lot of drop off from, number 1 defensive lineman to number 6. And so it's helped them kind of have a steady rotation. Aiden Kiana, who came over from Notre Dame.
He looks good.
Yeah, he had a really strong performance against San Diego State, has really slid in well. And there's been some different guys that have stepped up. TJ Bowlers came in from Wisconsin. He had a really strong start as well. Nate Burrell has come back, has been really, impressive as a returning guy. And they played, mostly this season without one of their top guys, Ricky Correa, who was going to be slotted in as their starting, nose tackle. And so they've been able to work through some injuries and do some different things. And then Xavier Carlton, who was at Utah, started his career at Utah, came over a couple years ago to Cal, has really been impressive at outside linebacker. Ryan McCullough, who is a second-year player, stepped in. David Reese was somebody they brought in from Florida last year, had a really strong finish at outside linebacker, the edge rusher position, got hurt in the opener against Davis and has not been back. He's been suited up. Again, part of that probable group. So again, a lot of game time decisions. You don't know if those guys are going to play, but you look at him and you go, that guy is going to be a star. And so they've been without that too. And so as much as they have been successful, they've been without some pieces as well. And so some other guys have stepped up. Xavier Carlton had a really strong game against San Diego State. Like I said, Ryan McCullough has been kind of the revelation at outside linebacker because super athletic, kind of got his feet wet last year. Weren't sure if he was going to take that next step, but he looked great in camp and has continued that into the season as well.
Yeah, McCullough leads you in pressures with 14, according to PFF, and that's on 80 rush snaps. So he's got a high success rate. Carlton, 12 of 95. Listen, Buchanan is 17th in the nation in tackles, 30th in TFLs. I'm not sure there is a better defensive player in college football right now than Teddy Buchanan. He is fun to watch play. And as you mentioned, I believe it's Noll Williams that leads the nation in interceptions with 4. So you guys have been opportunistic, disruptive, and deeper. Particularly, I think you mentioned, I can't remember, it was 4 guys on the interior of the defensive line had played 50 or more snaps, or maybe 6 across the front 4 had played 50 or more snaps. So I did not realize that was the David Reese from Florida. So I'm sure David will do everything he can in his power to try to play in this game, since he's been against Florida State before and has seen this offense before. So that'll be interesting. Now, just tell us a little bit about the kicking game. I noticed where y'all Cal seems to be struggling in field goals. Of course, he's 2 of 6. Your field goal kicker, but 2 of those are over 50, so I really don't read too much into that. But just a little bit about the punter and kicker, and do they have the ability to influence this game?
Yeah, and so I asked Justin Wilcox about that because Ryan Coe came over from NC State or from UNC, and the thought was he's going to be their answer because they lost their top guy in the portal. They had some issues with their previous starting kicker, and special teams kicking issues are not new for Cal. And so fans were like, okay, finally a refreshing somebody who can do this job. And so throughout camp, throughout the offseason, he was great. I mean, he nailed a lot of big kicks. You could see that he was their type of guy that they've been wanting. And then he got into the games and there's just been some issues. And whether it's been snapping issues or just him missing kicks, it hasn't been what they expected. And so I asked Justin Wilcox about that this week. He just said he has to get into a rhythm, and they didn't really have any much else outside of that. He's their kickoff guy, and he's been, they wanted to address the field position game. They had issues with kickoffs previously, and so there were too many kickoffs being returned, and Justin Wilcox just didn't want to have that anymore. And so their first need was to address the kickoff issues. Ryan Coe has been very good about that. He has a lot of touchbacks, haven't been a lot of returns, and so they've addressed that. It's now been the field goal kicking issues, because looking back even to last season, and I think fans for a while looked like the Auburn game was going to go this way too. A lot of fans were like, they should have won, that Auburn game last year. They had a couple missed kicks, and it was like, if you make those, it goes a different way. And so to have that come up again, it's been concerning for Cal. But Ryan Coe has the leg. I mean, he's proved it even this season. He's made some longer kicks, and he just has to find that consistency. So that's kind of the big question when it comes to the kicking game. This game could come down to, a field goal like that. And so you need him to be, on par and ready to go. And so we'll see what happens there. Their punter, Lachlan Wilson, has had a really strong season. He's done it. There's been a couple games, a couple moments where it's like, oh, he saved them from, bad field position, helped lead to, a better drive offensively eventually. And so he actually has looked better in season than he did, probably for the most of camp. Most of the offseason. And so that's been a positive sign. He's looked good. He looked good last season as well. He had plenty of a big punts last year as well. And so the return game is where it's interesting, because if Jay Nott's able to go, it brings a whole different dynamic. They don't like to use him a whole lot in the kickoff game, but his first ever college kickoff return, he returned 100 yards for a touchdown last year against UCLA. And so we saw it against UC Davis. Noll Williams had a return kickoff because they just didn't want to kick it to Jay Nott. And so you kick it to somebody else and he returns it for a touchdown. And so he adds a different element. They've kind of rotated some guys at the punt returner position. Mikey Matthews is someone that'll probably be back there. They're the return game has been interesting. I think they have some explosion there, but it all depends on who's healthy, who's able to go. But the kicking game is where the focus is going to be because Ryan Coe, again, has been kind of inconsistent this year.
Yeah, I think this has got a chance to be a very close game based on what we've seen from Florida State in the first couple. They played, except for Boston College, both of them have been relatively close, I guess. But this should be a defensive struggle. That's what I'm trying to say. Should be the defenses should have better days. All right, so they've been to Auburn, so I don't think there's going to be anything necessarily intimidating about going on the road. They got some confidence out of this. How do you think this Cal team feels about its chances as they hopped on this plane this morning to fly out east to Tallahassee to take on Florida State? They've seen this as Justin Wilcox said, they've seen the tape. The tape is what it is. He didn't mean that totally negative. He meant it in a positive way. He thinks Florida State's got some outstanding, talented athletes on this football team, but the tape is what it is. How do you think this team feels about itself coming into this game?
I think there's confidence. I think they're not overlooking Florida State, which is a positive thing. I was interested to hear kind of what the messaging was going to be and how, because this team hasn't been in this position before. They aren't used to, winning games like this and starting seasons 3-0 and having this much confidence and having this much attention around them. And so they were saying all the right things, and that's positive. I think Justin Wilcox and the staff, they were talking glowingly about the talent that Florida State has. And I truly do think they believe that. I think they understand, that they can't get too big-headed about this because especially Justin Wilcox and a lot of the staff have been together for a long time. They've been in positions like this before where they overlook a game like this, or they think they maybe have too much confidence in a game like this. And so, and they know they can go bad. And so I think the confidence is not going to be a problem. I think they respect Florida State quite a bit. I think the travel is not an issue. I'm still concerned about the injuries and how much that's going to impact them, because again, we've heard a lot about guys being probable close to playing before, and it just doesn't happen. And so I think that if they're at full strength, I like Cal's chances, but I'm not fully convinced that everybody's going to be back. And there are just still a few too many question marks in a game like this. I think there should be kind of a genuine fear about a desperate team, a team that knows it wants to win. And I think there is a lot of talent on Florida State's side. And so I still have some concerns about the offense and if it's fully going to be able to do what it wants to do. There haven't been a ton of explosive plays. If they're not able to do that on the road, it makes for a difficult time. I still want to see the running game kind of prove it to me, especially if Jay Nott is not going to end up playing. So I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be something like 27-23 Florida State. It was that game against Auburn. There was moments where it was like, this could go a different way. And so there are some close moments where it's like, they need to score. They need to do this to really put this out of hand. And they weren't able to do that. So if they prove it to me one more week, then we're having a different conversation, but you're facing a team that wants to win, that needs a win. And I just think that, this is a tough road matchup for Cal and going across the country. I know that they've really downplayed that a lot. They go out early, but I think eventually that takes its toll. And so we'll see if it happens this week, but I think Florida State gets their win. I think Cal, gives it a good effort, but on the road at Florida State, there's still a couple too many question marks for me with Cal at this point.
All right. Well, Matt, we appreciate you coming on. If Florida State or Osceola subscribers want to go check out your content on Cal to learn more about the Bears as they come into Tallahassee, where can they go to get that content?
Yeah, goldenbearreport.com, Cal Rivals on Twitter, and have all of our content there at all times.
All right. Well, Matt, we appreciate it so much you taking time out of your schedule to join us and help educate us on Cal. And we look forward to catching up with you another time. We're going to take a break and be back in 90 seconds with the man, the myth, the legend, JP Peterson. And we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Florida State football, ACC, what's going to happen with the conference. We're going to talk a little bit about the Gators, what he's hearing about Billy Napier. He got a big game in his neck of the nape, Miami at USF. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But we'll be back in 90 seconds. And Matt, appreciate you so much, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, too.
The Backshore. That stretch of fluffy sand just beyond the reach of the salty waves. The place reserved for volleyball nets, cookouts, and the air filled with fun and laughter. Celebrate the Backshore with Backshore Apparel. Grab an amazingly soft and comfy Backshore Apparel beach hoodie to keep you protected from the sun's harmful rays. Or the Backshore revamped trucker hat, a modern twist on a classic favorite. Crafted from moisture-wicking fabrics, ensuring they're lightweight and breathable. Not to mention durable with their unique floating feature. Shop now at backshoreapparel.com. And right now, FSU fans get 10% off your order with code FSU10. Hey Seminole fans, Alumni Hall is your ultimate FSU shopping experience and has moved to a new location off Timberlane Road in Tallahassee. Shop FSU gear from Nike, Champion, New Era, Yeti, and more. Alumni Hall has Seminole gear for the entire family, plus accessories and gifts. Spend $150 and you'll earn $10 off your next purchase with their Hall Pass rewards. Stop by their new location on Timberlane Road near REI or shop anytime online at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Seminole fans shop. Finding an experienced lawyer you can trust is crucial. With over 50 years of combined litigation experience, the attorneys at Mowry Law Firm are dedicated to providing our clients with exceptional legal services, focusing on car and trucking accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death. Call 904-824-7799, MowryLaw.com.
All right, we are back with the Osceola Seminole Sidelines, and I am joined by former FSU student and alumnus, I should say, and current radio legend. It's not even radio anymore. You got a YouTube show. You got your podcast.
Oh yeah, we got everything. We're live streaming, baby. We're everywhere. How are you, partner?
JP Peterson. I'm doing good, man. In fact, I'm shopping for a fancy microphone. We're doing so many podcasts now. I've got to get rid of the earbuds and get my radio voice going. Hey, I just want to know,
like $20 on where we get Amazon or something.
I hope my brother's who makes that, by the way. My brother just texted me. He wants a microphone for his podcast.
Oh, it's JLab. They make everything.
JLab. All right, I'll write that down for him.
All kinds of good stuff. You can get better than that, though. Way better. Get a Shure microphone. Way better.
He better be listening. So hopefully I'll quiz him after the show. Well, listen, I was on your show Monday. Have you settled down any?
No, I haven't. I haven't. You know, I was gonna post my screaming rant. It was not directed at you, but
I knew that. I knew that.
You may have sparked it, though.
I did spark it. I know what sparked it. I did not answer your question with enough venom. I know it got you going. You wanted DJU gone. And I mean,
here we are. Here we are on Thursday. Has he been buried yet? I mean, are we still like charade gonna walk out the living dead on Saturday?
He is alive and kicking, and that's going to be the case. I've heard that.
I'm sure he's a nice kid too. You know, I'm sure he's a really nice young man.
Yeah, listen. I think he's probably a great kid. I've never, it's always been pleasant. Going back to when we saw him on his official visit to Florida State back in December or early January. I can't remember exactly when he came in, but seems like a nice young man, and this is not what that's about. So, but yeah,
and evidently he or someone in his family has a great talent for blackmail or something. I don't know what it is, but they are to keep him in here at this. I literally have been consuming so much FSU information for the past 2 weeks, doing your show and just listening, and I literally can't find one person on Twitter, radio shows, streams on the planet that thinks staying with DJU is a good idea, except the only dude that counts, and that's Mike Norvell. I mean, it's not. I've seen we've gone through this in the 40 years I've been covering sports. You're always getting quarterback controversies, but I don't think I've ever seen one this one-sided, and with the coach just absolutely digging his heels in when an entire fan base, and I mean, which you never need to listen to the fans. I get it, but I've never seen it more lopsided than this. Have you?
Well, listen, I'm gonna give you. This is where you're gonna get mad again. All right, so after I was on your show, and I've got.
We even converted Salva at this point. I mean,
right?
and
when you convert Salva to do a quarterback change,
you
know something's going on.
That's when I knew it was unanimous. Once he came to the bright side, to the side of light.
Yeah. All right, so this is some of Mike's comments about DJ. This is paraphrase. I've got it. I've left my notes so far away. Hold on one second, James. We're gonna do something very unprofessional here.
Oh, that's okay. I do it all the time. All right, we're going, and he's doing it on green screen too, so he goes in and out.
I've got my wad of notes here from the week. All right, so
I haven't heard today's press conference.
Well, I didn't listen today.
Or
And
you
I
got
will.
yesterday's?
I will later, but no, this is what he said on Monday about DJU when he had his big press conference. You know, the one where he's had 48 hours to collect his thoughts and those kind of things. All right, he said,
sounded like Kamala. Yeah.
You see the moments. He has given us a chance. He has given us an opportunity to make plays. And so my response to that was in takeaway Tuesdays is, sorry, coach, I don't see it at this point. I don't think anybody outside the Moore Center does either. And while problems abound with the offense, there needs to be an open competition at multiple positions. The experiment with the bridge quarterback needs to come to a close. I think that most people feel that way. Listen,
it's unanimous.
Yeah, but here's the deal. It's just, I remember we had a family vote when I was growing up. And Dad went around the room and everybody voted the same way. And he looked at all four of us and said, well, the bad news is I'm the one making the money. It means I get 5 votes. So you guys only got 4. I'm doing this. So I think what Mike Norvell is telling everybody is, hey, there's a reason they're paying me $10 million a year and not you. We're going with DJU. And my understanding is, JP, that is the case. They are going to go with him this week. There is no plan to insert anybody. Now, obviously that could change depending on the tone and tenor of this game. But, just your thoughts on, I guess, the fact that everybody, and listen, these are people that care about Florida State football that are talking about this. So it's not like you have an axe to grind. I mean, you won't, and most other people that are being critical, including me, it's just that the quarterback touches the ball every single play, and he also has a chance to motivate not only the people in that huddle, but the people on that sideline. So just your overall thoughts on where this is going to go.
We can go with the X's and O's, which we talked about ad nauseum. I mean, and that to me is where it should start and end mostly, and not the rest of the surrounding stuff should not be that much important, but it is. It becomes important when it's this bad. So I'll start with the X's and O's. It's just as simple as this. When you're running an RPO type of offense, or even any that includes RPOs, and you have a quarterback that cannot threaten the edge, it's pointless. It's completely pointless. I've never seen a quarterback this slow. I don't think a DJ was this slow at Clemson. I don't know if he's hurt, or I don't know, but I've never seen him this slow. And he cannot get out of the pocket. He walks into sacks. He's taking everything back. I mean, yes, you can look at the other things that are going on around him, but I could also say those are directly impacted by how bad he is. So we can go through all of that. I think everybody that can watch the football game can see the passes are horribly inaccurate. He can't read. He misses wide open guys in key situations, and then he can't run. At every level of football now, quarterbacking is an athletic endeavor. The days of the drop back quarterback are gone. For the most part. And he is not even a good drop back quarterback. If he was a guy that could sling it and was accurate, you could get away with it because, the defense would have to account for that, but he's not. So from a defensive standpoint, if you're a defensive coordinator, it's just way too easy. And that brings up problems. So you have to have a multifaceted attack. You have to have a multifaceted quarterback, and he is not it. And you have guys behind him who can do that. So it doesn't make any sense to me on an X's and O's level. Well, now when you take it to the next level, okay, what about the fan base? What about the donors? And I've spoken to, I know rich people. Yes. And I know rich people connected to Florida State, and they are disgusted. And many of them are very close to Mike Norvell. And they are like, dude, I don't know. Nobody gets it. We don't know. And it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, Pat. I mean, in situations like this, when there's pressure being put from outside sources, and there is pressure being put from outside sources that matter, people that matter. I mean, you've got a group of guys that are giving millions of dollars to this university every year, and women, by the way. Sorry.
And just gave millions of dollars to give him a big raise.
Exactly. And with those checks comes responsibility to a fan base, to donors and everything. And how the hell are you going to go ask those same people for money when you just, took it to the stock market and put it all in the worst piece of crypto that you could ever do and lost it all. I mean, nobody's going to give you any more money when you do that. And so this becomes a real crisis in a program that it sank like the Titanic in 3 games. And it's not just about the play on the field. It's about everything that comes with it. With big-time college football now and the money that we're talking about, this becomes a real crisis. And you just can't ignore the fact that your entire fan base – listen, Pat, I don't know how many people are showing up for this game. Based on FSU Twitter, when everybody's heard DJU was in, they're like, he's in, I'm out. I'm not driving to Tallahassee for that. Why would I? I'm not spending money on that. Why would I? And this becomes a really huge problem that snowballs. And I'm the first person that says you don't need to be listening to outside forces when it comes to making big decisions about quarterback. But the deal is, I can't see how anybody that has ever watched the football game or has been critical or watched tape or played the game can look at this situation and come up with any other answer except Brock.
Yeah, well, listen, go to Brock. I think that there's, as I said, I think there's problems abound on offense. They have not done a very good job across the board with the transfers they brought in offensively or defensively. But listen, the one thing you know about Brock is he's going to play with energy and enthusiasm. And this offensive huddle and this offensive team needs that right now.
The fan base needs it.
Yes. And listen,
the team needs it.
And going back to your point about DJU, and I had a similar conversation with somebody earlier in the week. So I came back home, turned on YouTube, started finding clips of him at Clemson. He is not the same athlete. He's not the same player. He is bigger. He does not move as well. He does not move as quickly. He does not throw the ball as well. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's who he's surrounded. Now, I am going to say this. Part of it is who he's surrounded by. There's no doubt about that. The offensive line is not playing well. Receivers aren't catching the ball. Running backs aren't running the ball hard. There's a lot of issues here. And I think I think people are frustrated because they've given so much money to the NIL, to retain the coaching staff. Now they're being asked to pay more and that you've driven people out of your seats. It is just the worst time in the history of the program. And it's not about, listen, I expected a fall off, JP. I've written about it. You just lost too many great players.
You did.
But it's the optics of this fall off. It's like they felt, I said on your show on Monday, it's like, particularly on the offensive ball, it's not like they fell off a cliff. Listen, and I saw some video this week from practice. I didn't go to practice. I got a lot of stuff on my plate, including recruiting and scouting reports on the opposition. And somebody puts up a tape, and it was not one of our guys. It was another organization. And I watched a drill where they're doing a tackling drill, and they're being high-fived and rewarded over arm tackle. I mean, it's just –
Over an arm tackle?
Yeah, I'll send you the clip. I mean, Adam Fuller, just some of the fake enthusiasm stuff that you can't see, you just can't bear to watch. I mean, I've gotten 3 texts from people in football that I've seen are like, can you believe that? So do you see him congratulate that kid after an arm tackle? I mean, I think when you start, I think the totality of,
maybe that's what it's come to, man. You get a guy on the ground, it's time to celebrate. It doesn't matter how you did it.
But listen, and here's the thing. I was going to save this for later in the show, but I think this. Coaches are making more than they've ever made before. And players are now, and there's some players on this team, what I'm being told are right, are making high 6 figures. Mid to high 6 figures. All right. So Dion was talking about criticism. That's not, about being players and coaches being attacked. Now he said you should attack the players or attack the coaches, but not the players. I don't think anybody is attacking players. This is criticism. It's critical analysis.
Exactly. Thank you.
And when you are paid to do something, you have accountability. And I said when we went to the NIL that fans' patience were going to be shorter and wear thinner quickly because they're the ones paying the freight. They're the ones giving the money to fund these NIL deals. And when they don't start getting the results they want, they are going to start. Yeah.
And they should. And thanks to the folks at Tennessee, we now have a direct connection with the talent fee.
Yeah.
And now if you didn't think you had the moral and ethical backing to bitch and call out a player, well, now you certainly do, right? Because you're paying their salary. Why not? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
which I think is terrible. Why you would call it a talent fee and connect it directly to the players is absolutely abhorrent.
Well,
grown people should not be, the adults should not be doing this. We know we can all make the connection subconsciously or indirectly. You don't have to directly connect it like that, which is ridiculous. But whatever. Nor do you already increase prices. So why can't you just increase prices more and not connect it directly to the players? But whatever. Your point is well taken, though. I mean, these kids are getting paid now, and I'm not saying it means we can go on Twitter and call them by name, and you know, I still think I'm going to give them some deference because they're young men, but we can be as generalized, and I think you have to be fair in your critique. I'm not, a kid makes one mistake, I'm not jumping all over him. I'm going to have to see 3 or 4 games in a row where you want absolutely no contact before I'm ever going to call you out by name. And bottom line is, Pat, and you know this, it's an old coaching. I'm sure your dad said this a million times. You're either coaching it or allowing it. So in the end, it comes back to the coaches anyway.
Right.
If you continue to put a guy on the field who cannot set the edge, it's not on him. It's on the coach. If you continually put guys out on the field that can't throw or inaccurate, can't run, make bad decisions, it's not on DJU. It's on Mike Norvell. You're the one putting them out there. So if they keep making the same mistakes, it comes back to the coaches, and they're getting paid plenty, and we'll zero in on them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where most of it goes, right? I mean, you do call out inconsistent play from players, and that's fine.
Right.
And when I do it on the thread, I usually refer to them by number as opposed to name, but
I think
that's the
fair.
way I was around. But you do listen. And we're not, in the quarterback's case here, we're talking about a fifth-year senior. We're not talking about a freshman.
Right.
But listen, when LeBron James went into the NBA as an 18-year-old, he was paid to play basketball. He received more individual criticism or critical analysis than he did if he had gone to college, right? Once you start cashing, they couldn't cash a check back then in college, but now you can. And so, I think again,
no, it was strictly cash back then.
Yeah, strictly cash. But so anyway, I think it's interesting. But listen, I want a couple other things that Mike said. I just want to get your take on. He talked about the fact that things were not changing from going from Sunday through Friday to Saturday. That what was happening in practice was not transferring to the football field. And I've got to find my talking point on that, if you'll give me a second. But pretty much what I said was,
I heard it. And listen, and here's the thing, and it's not all of the whole press conference was just weird. Mike has always talked in a very confident and declarative way. I'm kind of going into my nonverbal communication education that I received at Florida State that has done me so well over the years. And you could just see a man that is completely unsure of himself, which I've never seen before from Mike. A guy that's grasping for answers. Never seen that before from Mike, even in the bad times. He was very declarative about where we were heading, how we're going to do it. This seems like a totally different human. I think he's shell-shocked by what he feels were bad evaluations. I think he's been let down by his coaches on so many levels, and there needs to be serious cleansing in the offseason of that staff. I think there's a lot that he's unsure of, and I don't think he has the answers right now, and I don't think that's what scares me. It really feels like a rudderless ship at this point. He was so unsure of himself, and he's like telling us, well, he's playing great in practice. Well, who gives a rat's ass if you can't do it under the lights? And how many times have we seen players, and you in coaching seen players that get it done in practice all day long? Hell, I'm freaking Jack Nicklaus on the practice tee, bro. I mean, are you kidding me? But when I try to take it out to the course, no, I'm Peter Griffin. I mean, it's bad.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. If you can't compete on when the lights are bright and you're a fifth-year senior and it's not transferring, yet another reason, get him the hell out of there. And it's not just him. I'm talking about the offensive line. Look, just because they're transfers from big programs and they're big and they're strong, if they don't know the offense or can't get it, then move somebody in who does.
Yeah, listen, there's only 3 things I know that you can do in season when things aren't transferring, and your golf analogy was great. Just like when I shank a ball from the middle of the fairway with a 3-iron and I get pissed and throw another ball down that doesn't count. That one goes straight.
Of course.
I still got to go find the one in the woods that's got to try to get it out to make bogey. But yeah, but listen, the only thing I know to do, you change the way you practice. Yeah. 2, you change the way you coach. Or 3, you change the players that you are coaching. The fourth option you cannot do during the season, which is what you've already suggested. You change who's coaching them. But
I'm not during the season.
I'm not a proponent of. I hate seeing coaches get fired. I'm not a fan at all of seeing. And listen, there are 3 games into the season. It looks bad, but let's see what happens.
No, let's wait till the end of the season. Yeah, absolutely.
But from the practice thing, you change the way you coach in practice. You change the way you practice, or you change the personnel you're getting ready for game day. That's the only 3 options you got. And I would like to see them make some changes. But listen, he's the guy. And listen, he did kind of double down. He goes, listen, I know how to win. And then he went on to say, I have confidence in what this is going to be. I know where this is going to go. I know what it is going to be. I know we are better. So now either he is trying to speak it to life, or he doesn't see, and I got to think that's what it is, JP, right? I mean, he's trying to.
Oh, I heard the words. I heard the words, but you watch the tape. Go watch the press conference, and go put on one from last year or the year before. And if you tell me that's the same guy, because it ain't.
I've noticed some things, and I've told some people about it. I haven't written about it just because it would be piling on at this point. But listen, yes, there's been some. He mentioned the logistics of having to go to Ireland. Don't bring that up. Georgia Tech had the same damn thing.
Yeah.
Then this week there was some injury talk. Well, everybody's got them. That's it's not you don't have a Jordan Travis type injury. You got some guys that are hurt, but none of them are difference makers. So there's really not. So I've heard some things and the tone has been a little bit different. And then of course, he did get fired up about the perimeter blocking. I would have.
Yeah, he did. That was the only time I felt like I was watching the old Mike Norvell.
Yeah, and I think
isn't that funny?
Yeah, I think he should have.
It was a totally different demeanor. Totally, and then he apologized for it.
Well,
I was like, "Why'd you do that?" That was the best part of the whole thing.
Well, listen, I think
it's weird. It's something is just not right, Pat.
Listen,
I wish I could put my finger on it, but man, it's just weird.
I don't think Mike's ever going to be a guy that's going to come out and call a player out by name, but I think it's all right to say, hey, as a offense, we are not blocking very well.
Right. Yeah, it's fine.
And if we continue to block like this is going to be the way it is. And I think people would much rather hear that than what he said this week, which I called the spin cycle. It's just one thing after another. And then we get a very vague comment about we are not playing to the level that we are capable of. Well, what is that? Tell us what that level is, Mike. Is that a bowl game? We're good enough to play in a bowl. We're good enough to compete for the ACC. What is that level? I mean, I think that's what people want. I think that's what they want to hear him say.
Yeah. Well, Pat, let me ask you this, because I think you have a much better grasp. I cover the Buccaneers on a daily basis, and I can tell you how many Pro Bowlers they have, who's a difference maker and who's not. I think the talent drop off on this team is just it's radical. Obviously,
it's more significant than anybody anticipated. Yes.
Yeah, and I think you could just go along the defensive line and say, we started saying those names, Marvin Jones Jr., Darrell Jackson and Josh Farmer and Patrick Payton. We're like, hell, I saw Nick Saban say this was the best defensive line, so I don't feel so stupid when I said they were the best defensive. We thought they were the best defensive line in football, and then you break it down. You go, it's the first time Marvin Jones Jr. has ever put his hand in the dirt. Why did we expect him to be able to set the edge?
Right.
Why? Why did we expect that? That was dumb on my part. Patrick Payton has clearly, I guess, decided that he's going to be a first-round pick, and he doesn't have to do any more to pad his resume. He's sadly mistaken. The other 2 guys in the middle I thought played a hell of a lot better last week. They really, really, really picked it up, but that was against an offensive line that, frankly, wasn't close to what he'd seen the first 2 weeks. So let's just be honest about that. And I just, sometimes we predict things that we haven't seen. We've seen Josh Farmer play well. Yep. I've never seen Marvin Jones Jr. play that position. I've never seen Darrell Jackson play that position very much, except practice. He's a wrecking ball, I hear.
Well, listen, he had a couple of snaps in the Memphis game where you're like, all right, that's the kid we see in practice. That's the kid we saw in fall camp. That when he pushed the center into the quarterback, caused a big loss of yardage, and then he had a really nice play where he probably got upfield just a step too far, but he redirected, stopped the guy for a 1 yard.
But that wasn't a great offensive line.
No, but I'm just saying. But you're starting to see a little bit of that from Farmer and Jackson, which is good.
But I think what I'm saying is we thought, and it's not my job though. I'm watching from a side. I mean, I'm taking a lot of people that I know and I trust. These guys think they're good. Nick Saban thinks they're going to be good. I think Mike Norvell thought they were going to be really good. They're not.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just works Sometimes it just works that way. Now, I mean, we all thought there were question marks at linebacker, and they're way bigger than we thought. Bigger than we thought.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if it's way bigger than I thought, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
there's certainly the issues up front are bigger than I thought.
We thought that the front would at least take care of the linebackers a little bit, which they're not. Yeah. So now you've got real trouble. You have terrible linebacking and a line that can't protect them in front. The secondary, I think they're all allergic to contact. I've never seen so many guys shy away from, I forget. I think it was 14, but I'm not sure. Where ball carrier was about to go to the ground, was still in play, and he had a full shot. He could have put his head on the ball, gone for a kill shot. I mean, that's what secondary players should drool about. When we tied up by the running back's tied up by the linebacker. Now here's my shot. I can call a turnover. You know what he did? He jumped over. Yeah. He literally jumped over the running back and the tackler. And I'm like, what the F was that? I mean, how can you play? How can you and you know what? He stayed on the field. I mean, how can a coach see something like that and go, oh yeah, get back out there, kid. Why don't you hit him next time? I mean,
well, I think that one of the perfect examples of this is Justin Cryer, right? Justin comes in, or Juice Cryer, as he's known, the linebacker that made the interception. Juice is a guy that has some natural football instincts. Is he as good an athlete as Cam Riley, and who actually was playing?
Yeah, he was playing great
until he got hurt, and hopefully he'll be back. But he's not as athletic as, say, a Blake Nicholson.
Right.
And Blake is getting better. Don't get me wrong. I think we saw some improvement on the front seven against the run. We can talk about the lack of being able to cover anybody all day long. But Juice Cryer is a guy, because he knows where to be and because it's important for him to be there, he's going to make a play. In football, you can tell the way he plays that football matters. Now, is he a step slower than the other guys? Yes, he is a step slower. But when you know where to be, JP,
exactly,
you're faster as a slow guy. You know where to be than you're a guy that's 4'4" and has no idea where he's going.
Story of Devin White.
Yeah, and so so there are some things that they can build off of on defense. But again, I clipped a play out. I think you saw it on Twitter where they're all chasing the ball and trying to punch the ball out, as opposed to somebody grabbing the guy.
Tackling him
and grabbing him by his engine, which are his legs, and bringing him down so somebody else can come punch the ball.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm hoping that I think Cal and Memphis are similar on the offensive line, so I'm hoping Florida State will have some success stopping the ball again, and I think that's what you got to build on if you're Florida State. Hey, we stopped the run last week. We're a week better. We're a week older as a unit. And maybe, we saw Sione Lole come in and he played really well, I thought. I think
I agree.
Should be a starter if he's not a starter.
He should be.
He should help groom Marvin along, to your point. Marvin has never played as a hand in the ground defensive end at the major college level. That is a ask, particularly when it's not pinning your ears back and rushing the passer.
Right.
He's got to learn to take on the run. He's got to get more technically sound, and he's got to get used to it. And then you go back to the pass defense, man. I don't get it. I don't understand the.
Well, Pat, this goes back to coaching again. Listen, if you have a half where your linebackers and safeties are not passing off the running back and they're leaving them wide open in a flat, you connect it to second half. It doesn't happen the rest of the season. You've now played 12 quarters where you still can't get a running back covered in the flat. I mean, it's the most basic thing.
Yes.
It's the most basic thing in football. And I'm here as a defensive coordinator. If I'm, and I see guys make adjustments all the time in the pros, this is not hard to do. You have a package of zone defense. And if your guys can't run man and they continually are costing you touchdowns, I mean, these are not 5-yard gains, bro. These, as you know, these are 27, 30-yard gains on 3rd and long. They're touchdowns, and it's the easiest call for a coordinator to make. I mean, you think Bill O'Brien must have been looking at this tape going, well, they're going to fix this. I can't call this. And he's like, well, I guess they're not going to cover it.
Well, listen,
keep calling it.
They're not going to fix it. Everybody's thrown as a flat for 3 weeks.
You just play zone. It's so easy to fix.
I mean, why can't you say, hey, you don't leave unless
play zone. If we can't pass it off, if we can't figure out how to play man. And by the way, we don't have linebackers that can play man. They can't do it. They're not fast enough. They can't keep up with any running back. You shouldn't even be asking him to do that. From a talent level, I'm sorry, DJ Lundy is not athletic enough to cover any running back in space, anywhere, anytime. If you ask him to do so, it's not the player's fault. It's your fault. I mean, come on. This is basic stuff. Well, and this is what is so maddening to fans. You're not getting beat by great teams with the exotic schemes that are killing you. This is basic 101 football, and you can't do it. And that's what's just so weird. That's so weird.
You just heard Matt's interview. You were sitting in on the end of it. Cal throws the ball to everybody on this. There's not one receiver you can pin in on. They've got 11 different guys that have caught passes this year, and they might get their best running back, but we'll see. Listen, I think this matchup is very similar to Memphis. I think Cal's probably better than Memphis was.
I do too. Defensively, they are.
I think so. I still don't know what to make of this game. Have you got a feeling for it? I mean, are you?
Well, listen,
you done until they win?
Yeah, I can't pick anybody to win this game. I mean, I can't pick FSU to win any game until I see them put together an offensive performance that's worthy of winning a game. I agree with you. The defense showed some signs last week, and that's hopeful. If they can just clean up their missed assignments, they have a chance to be okay and be able to play with Cal. Can you believe we're saying this? Well, no, but defensively, they're very good at taking the ball away. And how careless has DJU been with the ball? I mean, they're +8 in turnovers. They've got 9 takeaways in 3 games. They took the ball away 5 times from Auburn. That's how they beat them. And and that linebacker you talked about, Teddy Buchanan, is a freaking machine.
Yeah, he's a really fun player to watch.
What offensive lineman is bouncing to the second level that we have to get him? Nobody. I mean, that dude may make. If I could bet somewhere that he'll have 10+ tackles in the first half, I'll bet it. I mean, I don't see how we block him. So offensively, I don't see any hope. They held Auburn to 14 points, and I mean, I think Auburn's probably better than us offensively. So I mean, do we score 7? Well, we'll score 6 because we can make 2 field goals. So we might score 6 or 9. But
do you remember the Bizarro episode of Seinfeld?
Which one?
Bizarro World. It was an episode of Seinfeld.
Remind me.
Elaine found 3 male friends that were almost exactly like Jerry, George, and Kramer, except for they were politically correct. All right. So anyway, I told Matt when he came on the show, I said, this is from where I thought we would be talking about this game when the season. It's Bizarro World. Cal is 3-0 and just outside the top 25. Florida State is 0-3, coming off a 13-1 season.
It's a great analogy.
And I said, listen, here's what I said last year. Until they lose, I'm not going to pick against them.
Yeah.
I got about 18 more hours before I have to turn my prediction in. But listen, the film does not lie. It's funny.
Right.
Justin Wilcox, the head coach at Cal, was trying to give them a compliment, and but he said the film. If you turn on that film, and what he was, the film is what the film is, and what he was trying to say was
they're not very good.
No, what he's trying to say is, look, they got talent, they got athletes. That's what he was trying to say. But sitting on the other end of watching that press conference, I was like, that's not how I took it. I was like, yeah, he sees the same thing I see.
Yeah,
But that's not what he meant.
No,
he was trying to make that a positive.
I yesterday we're talking to Servassier Dennis, Bucks linebacker, and we were asking him about the Broncos offense with Bo Nix, and he was trying to say, he wasn't trying to be mean, but he's trying to find some words to not like dunk on him, and he's like, well, there's they got Bo Nix, he's a talented guy, and then Sean Payton, and he's really good coach, and they're doing their thing. And he started to laugh because when you turn on the tape, you're like, dude, that is not an NFL offense. Like they are just completely over. I mean, you got a young kid that's just confused, and they're trying, they'll get better. But right now it's a disaster. And that's exactly, if you're a coach, you turn on this film and you've got to be going, holy crap, they can't do anything right. Like they are so bad. They run into their own guy in the punt return. Holy shit.
Well, listen, that was actually a really good play by the Memphis punt coverage guy. They're taught to push in because it's illegal. It's illegal.
Guys should be taught to stay away from the guy catching the ball.
Yeah, and they're supposed to have verbal commands. It's usually Peter or something like that. Right. All right, so I will say this. All right, so when I did this preview thing last week with the Memphis guys, I told the guy we had on, I was like, when I was watching Silverfield in his press conference, it was kind of like watching the guy that had, with the canary in his mouth, right? You could tell that Ryan felt like they had a really good shot to come in here and win this game. Yeah. I thought Justin Wilcox for the Cal head coach was a little bit more harder to read and what he thought. Like I could, even though he was saying all the right things, they got some dudes, this, that, and the other. And he did say, listen, this is a program that's got a very prideful outfit, and they'll come out to play, and you believe those things, right? I mean, because listen, there are kids on that team that want to come out and win ball games.
Unfortunately, they're all on the bench.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So anyway, so we'll see what happens. We'll have our prediction tomorrow at the Osceola.com. The staff will do it. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get into what was some breaking news. And listen, as I've told you on your own show, when you asked me about expansion and conference realignment, somebody knock on my door when it's done. I don't have time.
I get it.
Do it. But I know that you do. I know you have people that come on your show and talk about it. But obviously, there was a report either 2 days ago or yesterday that Florida State and Clemson had approached the other ACC schools about some, I don't know what you want to call it, just paying those two schools more because I guess visibility.
Look, our media rights, Clemson and Florida State's media rights are triple what any other school in the conference are, because football drives the media rights. And that's, I try to make this as simple as I can for so many people. It's what basically you can sell commercials for in your football games, right? If you have, 4 million people on average watching your games, those games are worth a lot of money, obviously, to the networks and advertisers. If you have 1 million, like these other schools do, it's worth much less, obviously. So that's where the money is derived from, very simplistic. And Florida State, obviously, when you do a media deal with the ACC, if you're a network executive, you're looking at the bottom line, like, okay, Clemson and Florida State, their media rights are worth this. We're going to give this to the conference. It's basically socialism, right? But you've got two teams that are doing all the work.
Welcome to America, buddy.
Right, exactly. So now we have to share with everybody else within our conference. Okay, that's fine. That's the way it usually works. We'll get some money from their basketball. Everybody will be happy, blah, blah, blah. That's the way it used to be. Well, things have changed dramatically. Okay, now however much money you get in your TV deal goes directly to how many players you can get in your NIL. So it goes right to your, quote, salary cap, right? You can't be at a humongous disadvantage as these ACC teams will be. And Florida State says, well, why are we doing that for everybody else? We want our share of the pie. So then now, and that's what we did 3 years ago when we went to the conference, is that, hey, man, we don't want to leave. We don't want to be a jerk, but we can't keep paying the freight for everybody else while we have to compete with Florida. Wake Forest doesn't care about competing with the University of Florida. They don't care in football. NC State doesn't care about having to compete with Georgia and Alabama like we do, because we're the ones that have to compete to keep the ACC as a legitimate football conference. We need the money. And so you need to redirect that money to us so we can still be your bell cow, us and Clemson, and Miami seems like they're coming along, and to keep the money rolling in. So why don't you, give us a little something for the effort? And they said, go F yourself. And we said, oh, okay, let's ask again next year. And they said, well, go F yourself. And I said, so finally we said, okay, well, then we're going to have to do something different. So this is where we are. This is where we are. And so now we're going to, we're either going to get our media rights or we're not. And from a negotiation standpoint, now I think the ACC wants to say, listen, why don't you guys stick around for 4 or 5 more years till the next network cycle, and then we can and we'll give you a little bit more money in the meantime because of your visibility and everything that you bring, and then everybody will be happy. What do you say? So this is a step in the right direction, but I think it's gone. There's too much water under the bridge. There's too much acrimony. And FSU was like, well, we didn't come this far to stay in the ACC and get a little bit more money.
These damn bridges. Too many bridges.
So, I mean, I think FSU has a great legal case that will bring pressure to a settlement. And I still think they should get out and do that. But where are they going to go? Obviously, they could go to the Big 12 and they do their media rights deal. That would need to happen quickly. But nobody wants to be in the Big 12, right? Nobody here wants to do that. And they could, optimally, they could go to the Big 10 and be part of that expansion. And they would bring, obviously bring money and exposure to areas that the Big 10 does not have. And it would also help Florida State and the conference as well, because we would now get more ratings in these bigger cities in the Northeast, because they would be more interested in Florida State football because we're in your conference now.
Right.
So that's the way it all goes. Again, I'm kind of like you at this point. It's like, wake me up when it's over. But I still think Florida State holds a really, really good position because their media rights derive from you, the fan, watching, supporting the team, going to Ireland, traveling with the team. That's why your media rights are so good, because of the fans. So ergo, lose the fan base, Mike, by continuing this nonsense with your quarterback. And, that's not a really good idea.
Well, listen,
back to our original point. This is blown up to be something so much bigger than losing 3 football games. The timing is really bad.
Yeah. Well, listen, if we join the Big 12, we get Mike Gundy press conferences every week. That you see him fix the refrigerator the other day in the middle of the press conference?
I did not.
All right, so
how did I miss that?
His Pepsi machine was making this loud noise in the press room, and he stopped the press conference and went and pulled the fan out of the refrigerator in the middle of the press conference. I mean, my man is all right. So I always wondered who was going to replace Mike Leach. I think we have a leader in the clubhouse, and it's Mike Gundy.
Well, there's a man who knows how to make an in-game adjustment right there.
Yeah, we've gone from Steve Spurrier, king of press conferences, to Mike Leach, bless his heart, who's now rest in peace gone, and now we've got Mike Gundy. So listen, I'm here.
We love
it. That would be the one. All right, so let's take a couple. I know you got a little bit more time. You need to go.
Yeah, give me a couple more minutes. Yeah,
a couple more minutes, because there's a couple. Obviously, you live in the middle of Gator Town down there in Tampa. What is the latest scuttlebutt on Billy Napier? I have not had a whole lot of chance to pay attention to it this weekend. He's got a big game against Mississippi State.
The money has been raised. They got the $26 million to get rid of him. I started the season saying this is going to be a rough year because of the schedule. It matters how they play. That's what's going to be. Wins and losses are not as important as how you play, and they played like dog crap. So I think that's kind of sealed his fate. And they're eyeballing Lane Kiffin, and I
don't think they'll get him, but that's fine.
I don't know about that, but that's what I think. That's what their plan is, and I think the sooner they get rid of Billy, the later. If he loses to Mississippi State this weekend at Mississippi State, where Toledo just beat them by 23 points, he may not be on the plane ride home. And if he loses to UCF the next week at home in the swamp, he's got no chance of making it to the locker room. None.
So he's got must wins the next.
That water bottle won't be his only nemesis. Trust me.
They're going to open a door. They're not going to open a water bottle. They're going to open a door for him.
All right. It won't be the one leading to the press conference.
All right. Well, you're the second person told me that Napier could be out by UCF. I was told that UCF, he had to win the UCF game. Ironically enough, I also heard that what was going to get him bought out was marijuana money, which is just fascinating to me that we have. And it's legal marijuana money, but that's what I was told by a Gator booster. They've got to Anyway, I just think this
deep
funny.
Pockets, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Deep pockets.
Big green in those pockets. Big green in those
We
pockets.
got Spanx. They got marijuana. Whatever it takes.
Yeah, that was funny. I had to laugh. I was like, well, green is green, right?
That's
all
right.
right. So now, if you told me this when the season started, that the team that had the best chance of beating the University of Miami in the regular season from the state of Florida was USF, I would have told you to go take a hike.
That's right.
But number 8 Miami comes to big Raymond James. They've opened up the second level for this game.
Yeah,
I think that's only the third time that's happened in USF history. Happened in the West Virginia game when I was there, and we beat those Jokers, number 5 team in the country. How you feel? I know you like Colt Golish. My boy KP, Kevin Patrick's on that staff.
Yeah,
obviously know still a lot of people on that campus. What's the feel around Tampa?
Listen, there's a feeling of optimism. I chatted with Sean Atkins today, their wide receiver, and they're loose. And he told me something interesting because I hyped up the game and my question. He's like, Coach really isn't doing that this week. He's just like, this is another game we should win. It's a big game, no question, but we're not going to treat it any differently than we treated Alabama or any of our other games. This is just, we got to do what we do. And they have a really, I think, a quiet confidence about them. The team does. The USF Twitter's gone bonkers, and they're going at Miami. It's kind of fun. It's kind of fun to watch. It really is fun to watch, that it's USF, and they're holding their own. Can tell you that. But because Miami gives you a lot of ammunition. Listen, Miami hasn't played a defense worth of crap yet. Cam Ward, his history is one of, I think he had 13 fumbles last year, another, 13 interceptions. He turns the ball over. He puts the ball in danger. If you do that against this USF defense, you're going to, they got, I think 3 from Alabama. They're going to need 3 turnovers to win this game. Look, I think Miami's really, really good, but what's waiting for them is a hostile crowd and a team that's better than they think they are. So I'm not saying I'm not guaranteeing a USF win. I think it'll be a good ball game. 17 points is ridiculous, is the spread. Yeah, I think USF will give them a really, really good game, and we'll see what happens. We know Miami. They always win the offseason, and when they start, they're already world beaters. They're the best team in the nation, and then they fall through the ice, right? It always happens. So how thick is the ice this year? I don't know. But it's going to get a little thinner this week, and we'll see if they come crashing down like they normally do.
I'm going to have to pull out my Bulls gear out of the back of the closet and put that on Saturday afternoon. And I think that's going to be – listen, that night we played West Virginia those many years ago.
Still the loudest crowd I've heard in Raymond James.
Louder
than any Bucks playoff game that I've heard. That was the loudest crowd I'd ever heard in Raymond James.
Yeah, the only 2 times they opened up the upper deck for us, we played West Virginia and played Florida State. Other than that, we never opened up the upper deck. So that's good for USF, and hopefully, listen, they're winning at the right time or looking good at the right time with that new stadium.
They win this game, they can claim state champions.
Boy, I tell you what, I saw some graphics of that new on-campus stadium. It
it's nice. Yeah, it's really nice. For $350 million, man, it's a really nice stadium.
Yeah. All right, you want to run through some games real quick?
Yeah, why not?
All right, so we got Friday night, a big one. Illinois at Nebraska, number 24, Illinois. And Luke Altmaier, who was Mike's first committed quarterback.
Oh, that's right.
It's a quarterback for Illinois.
Isn't it great how these guys show up everywhere, like tape makers at USM now?
And according to the guys on CBS, my favorite sports talk show on television is the CBS Sports. Neuheisel, Brian Davis, Randy Cross,
they're good.
Aaron Taylor, and I don't remember which of the 2 was which of those 4 guys was talking about Altmaier, but they said he was absolutely lighting it up for Illinois this year. So how
many ex-FSU quarterbacks are out there playing now?
I don't know.
So you got Tate, you got Altmaier.
Where's Chubba Purdy at?
Where's Chubba Purdy?
I don't know where Chubba's at, man. I can't keep up with that. He's probably in San Francisco. I think it's in Illinois, right? Champaign? At Nebraska.
Is that Nebraska? Okay.
That's my understanding.
I thought Nebraska looked good but it's Colorado, right? It's Colorado. Yeah. But clearly Rayola's the real deal. So I'm going to have to go with Nebraska then. Well,
Yeah, Nebraska at home at night. I'll go Nebraska.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right, then you got number 11 USC at the Big House. Number 18 Michigan. Mine's easy. USC in a blowout.
USC is a better football team. I'll just stop at that. And Michigan's a lot like us. They lost so much to the NFL, and they lost their head coach. So I think they're a little soulless and searching right now. So, yeah, I'm going to go USC.
All right, Arkansas.
Their
Auburn.
quarterback, by the way, is playing. Miller's playing out of his mind. He's really good.
USC's quarterback?
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked really good. Really good. All right, so this game's interesting to me just because I think whoever loses this game, now they're not going to do anything with Freeze, but I'd love to see the Auburn fan base if they lost to Arkansas. And Arkansas is going to be in trouble because if you look at their next games, I believe it's Texas A&M, Georgia, something in the games after this are incredible for Arkansas. Arkansas, Auburn. I'm going to go upset Arkansas.
I don't know what to make of Auburn after that loss to Cal. I think Cal's an okay team, but that's a tough one. 5 turnovers, though, can kind of change everything. But I'll say Auburn at home. It's a must-win for them.
All right. Number 12, Utah at number 14, Oklahoma State. Who you got?
The Fighting Gundies. I'm going to have to go with them. I like Utah. Is Cam playing? Cam Rising got hurt again.
He's done for the season.
Oh, he's done for the season?
Yep.
Well, then they're done. They're done. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking they get Ollie Gordon going at Oklahoma State this game.
Yeah.
I'm going Oak State. Now, this one's interesting because it's the Josh Heupel revenge tour. There's always a revenge tour somewhere. Number 6, Tennessee at number 15, Oklahoma. I go back and forth on this one because I'm not always convinced on Josh's team just because at times they can be undisciplined, I guess is the best way I could say it. They're loaded right now, it looks like. But,
Nico, the quarterback.
Yeah. So you going with Tennessee?
Yeah, they're talented and they're on a roll. I'm going to have to go with Tennessee right now. The best. I think they have the highest salary cap in the in football, highest NIL, and they're rolling.
They are rolling, and they just got their just got rich with Tennessee's little
talent fee.
Hey, so FSU fans, 10% increase on your tickets by this time tomorrow.
Listen, 10%. Well, wouldn't we have to have talent to have a talent fee? Oh,
well,
sorry.
Yeah, that's true.
Cheap
true.
shot.
All right.
My bad.
Yeah, we got some talented kids. We just got to find them. All right, so Florida at Mississippi State, just out of curiosity. I'm going to go Florida. I think Napier gets it done.
God, Mississippi State's bad.
They are.
But that's Stark Vegas, man. Magic things happen there when that cowbell starts ringing. Yeah, and they're kind of in a must win as well. So I'm going to go. I kind of feel about Florida the way I feel about Florida State until they do something.
They do it, yeah.
I'm going to go Mississippi State.
All right, and then I'm not a big bettor. I do dabble in sports betting, but my lock of the week is TCU giving up 3 over SMU at SMU. SMU's awful. So if I was going to put money on any one game, I think TCU blows SMU out.
Yeah, after that loss last week for TCU, I think they come back and get a dub here.
All right, so are you coming up for this game, or are you going to USF Miami?
Oh, dude, come on. I'm going to USF Miami. Absolutely. I'll be in the press box there or down on the field for that one. I'll report back to you who the best team in Florida is.
Well,
after this game,
you will get to witness it. All right, JP, man, I appreciate you jumping on.
At least I won't be watching. Well, I'll probably have the FSU game on my phone while I watch the other game. But I'll come home and watch it, drown my sorrows.
All right. Well,
listen, I'll end like this because I don't want to be a total Debbie Downer. But listen, I support the program. I support Mike Norvell. I think I don't know what's going on with him. It just seems different right now. Maybe he's just shell-shocked by everything going so poorly for him. The whole thinking back, wow, maybe I should have taken that Alabama job.
Don't get me started. That was
so listen, I support him. I support the program. I do think there are football reasons for all these things that have gone wrong, and they are fixable. But he cannot be as stubborn as he's been. He's got to make the moves. And I think you can paint a picture where there's hope. If you change the quarterback and he makes a difference, everything changes. Everything changes, especially if you got a guy that can run around and make things happen. Everything changes. It lifts your offense, your defense, your fan base. It lifts everything. And it's really the only way out right now at this point. It's the only way out, which is more reason why you should be doing it. So I think that changes everything. And I think you do start playing the younger players. And I think things will change for the better. There's still things out there. Will you win at Miami? No, that'll probably get really ugly, but you can beat Florida. You can get some nice wins and you can build for the future. And that's where we got to be as a fan base. We can criticize, but we got to stand with our team. We got to show up. We got to be loud, and hopefully the coach will get the message when you yell Brock, Brock, Brock again. And this thing can turn. It can turn. There's talent here enough to turn this into a bowl season and a learning season. So that's where our head should be at.
Yeah, listen, I think that I said before this 3-game run started last week that I thought they had a really good shot to get 2 of these 3. They have to get 2 of these 3. Now it's 2 of 2. I think they get SMU next weekend without a doubt. SMU's an awful football team on a line of scrimmage. I think this team matches up favorably to Cal's favorably to Memphis. I think it's down to really the lines of scrimmage.
Make some plays on offense. You got to make some explosive plays on offense.
So we'll see what happens. But listen, I sure as hell hope we're not talking about another loss on next week, because this gets harder and harder to do with each loss. And we're talking about
welcome to my world, baby.
And it's the same thing. It's not like it's one issue this week and one issue the next week. It's the same ones. But listen, you're right. We're here for it. We're both Florida State grads. We both want the best for this football team and this program. And hopefully they will get it turned around on Saturday night at 7:00 in Doak Campbell Stadium, in a game that's going to be televised on ESPN2. If you want to read more on the Osceola's coverage of Florida State versus Cal, please go to theosceola.com or floridastate.rivals.com. We've got our scouting report up today. We'll have visitors list for high school recruits tomorrow. We'll also have staff keys to victory for Florida State, and obviously our predictions tomorrow. Then we'll be back Saturday night late with Mark Salva, Shane Burnham, and
you guys enjoy that. I'll be watching and commenting.
Hey, if you want to jump on, just let me know.
All right, we'll do. Send me an invite. I'll be in rare form. I can tell you that.
All right, buddy. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody watching, listening.
JP Peterson Show live 10 to 12 every morning on YouTube, Facebook, our Twitter page at the JP Peterson Show. Please follow me there and get all of our stuff there. Thanks, guys.
And, all right. Thank you, JP. All right. We'll be back on Saturday night after the game with Instant Reaction with Mark Salva, Shane Burnham, and Charles Fishbein. And then we'll be back Monday night with a variation of 2 of those guys, and then either Kurt, Bob, or Jerry for our roundtable on what Mike said in his press conference on Monday. So still plenty of things to talk about pre and post Cal, but thanks for joining us, and we will see you Saturday night on the Osceola Seminole Sidelines.